Kia ora tātou te whānau. We are Malone Sustainable Styling and this is our podcast, Worn. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Sienna.
This is part 2 of a 2-part podcast called Style Rebels, where we discuss women through history who have used fashion to rebel and push back against norms.
Except today, we're going to include one man in our discussion.
Yes, we're including Harry Styles because I think we've talked so much about gender norms in episode 1 and that'll come up again through episode 2. And I think it's really useful to think about the other side of that and not just how women have pushed back against gender norms by embracing pants or showing the female form in different ways, but that men have a role to play in that as well by pushing back against toxic masculinity and showing themselves in a more feminine light. So we're going to talk about him and a few others.
It's nice to include somebody modern as well.
Yeah.
So we always start by checking in with each other about our outfits. So Sarah, what are you wearing today?
I am wearing, it's all thrifted. This is a New Zealand made top and like it's kind of cornflower blue, I guess you would call it, and a New Zealand made dress actually as well in a bone colour, which is a really good summer neutral. And it is merino on the outside, cotton on the inside. It's kind of a tunic dress. So I love tunic dresses. They're so comfortable and I think they look really cool layered. And it has pockets, so that's always a win. And then I'm wearing Mipiachi, like dark chocolate brown heeled boots that are lace up at the front, and I really like that they're kind of they're a new boot, but they are based on a vintage style, and I really like that as well, and I feel very good in my outfit. I'm also wearing my Labradorite pendant on a pearl string necklace, and yeah, I feel very comfy and I feel very much like myself. What about you, Sienna? What are you wearing and how do you feel in it?
So I am actually not in fully secondhand today, which is kind of unusual for me. I'm wearing a new Country Road tank. I saw this color come up and I had to have it because it's a really good spring color and I love green. And then I'm wearing a kind of cream.
It's like a butter yellow.
Yeah,
no, it's, you know what it reminds me of, this color? Like when you use tea to stain paper.
It absolutely looks like tea or tea stained cloth.
Yeah.
Gathered kind of maxi that kind of sits high on the waist. And then I'm wearing a blue leather sandal that Sarah gave me. So
they're too small for me. I keep buying shoes that I love secondhand, but they're always like one size too small for me. Then I eventually come to my senses and give them to Sienna, who is one size smaller than me.
Which is very exciting for me. And I'm also wearing this glass bead necklace that I made myself. It's got some like flower glass beads in green and then some little seed beads and glass beads.
I love it. I love the colour combo, like the corals and that orangey red with the green. So pretty. I love those daisy beads.
Yes, that's why this is like I made them the focal point of the necklace.
Yeah. And how do you feel in your outfit?
I feel very good. I am huge with color, as you will know. So this color gives me a lot of energy and I feel really good in it. And it's funny because I bought this top secondhand and I was looking at it this morning and kind of draping myself with this terracotta top and then looking at this one and I was like, oh my gosh, there was a massive difference in like my skin just lit up when I had the green and then I put the terracotta and it just dimmed.
Yeah, because was the terracotta, do you think, like in autumn?
Yeah.
It's so funny how warm toned people get that lights on, lights off with the right warm colours. It's like someone has flicked a light bulb on in front of them. And then with either cool colours or, in your case, going from spring to autumn, it's like the light bulb switches off. But the same thing happens with autumns who go from a cool colour to a autumn warm colour.
Yeah, and I didn't even have a good sleep last night. But as soon as I put on this green top, I'm like, I look energized. I look awake.
Power of colour theory. Yeah. That's not what we're here for today, though. Today, we, as we said before, are talking about rebellion and fashion. So we are finally going to be discussing the iconic Vivienne Westwood, who, if I had the money to invest in some vintage pieces, it would be some of her corsets and her gorgeous pearl chokers. I just love them.
So from like what era?
Definitely the 90s ones.
Yes.
The really romantic, like lace ones, but also the ones that had the sort of Botticelli type prints on them. It just, 100%. The 90s. I love the 90s styles anyway. So 90s plus Vivienne Westwood is like dream wardrobe for me.
Yeah. Do you think it was like we were young enough and we didn't get to wear all of the styles?
Yeah.
Whereas in the early 2000s, we were actually wearing those styles? Is that part of it?
Yeah. When they were first coming out, like, I wasn't a woman.
Yeah.
I didn't have the body to wear those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I think also because my favourite movie was Labyrinth, and it had that 80s romantic costuming to the main character, Sarah, that I've always loved that really, feminine, but kind of grungy gothic combination is so good. But I didn't realise until recently that a lot of the generation below us don't know about Vivienne Westwood as a punk icon and a designer from the 80s and 90s, but just know her as a modern wedding designer.
Oh.
Even though she's no longer alive, but her bridal collections which are stunning, but they have been so coveted on social media that there's a whole generation of women who only know her as a bridal designer, which I find incredibly interesting.
I completely forgot that she did bridal design.
Yeah. I mean, she's perfect for it.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of gothic, grungy, feminine, romantic style. But that completely slipped my mind that she did wedding dresses.
Yeah, but that's what she's known for by a lot of people. So let's get into talking about her as a rebellious designer and let's jump into some fashion history.
What I find really interesting about her is, unlike Madonna, who we're going to talk about later, she was really a slow burn as far as becoming the icon she is today. I mean, she essentially created punk and later grunge. But unlike Madonna, who was fairly quick to stardom, like Vivienne Westwood started as like a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And she was a mother.
Home sewer.
For a very long time.
Yeah.
And then kind of got into, not fell into it, but it was almost like this passion of hers.
Yeah.
And her and her husband, like she would sew his designs and things at the start. And so that's what I think is really interesting about her.
And like to the point where even when she was having success and her collections were on runways, she was seen as a joke to so many people. Like there's this one really awful clip where she's invited onto this panel show of women and they have her runway collection come out, and then like the women just tear her down. Like, you really expect people to wear this? And the audience is laughing at her. But joke's on them, because she was just so ahead of her time.
Yeah, she was.
And she's like a true artist that they couldn't handle how new and how subversive it was. To them, it was ridiculous. And she just takes it in her stride. It's quite an amazing piece of audio to listen to, actually. But yeah, definitely a slow burn is a good way to describe her. And now one of the most luxury brands that there is. And like some controversy around that too. The fact that she was so anti-capitalism, but her brand now is so a capitalist business.
Well, she came from a very humble upbringing, like in Cheshire, England, and I think very working class family. And she went to go train in jewelry, and she, I heard, like she almost felt that like it was not practical enough and almost frivolous. I don't know if frivolous is the right word for it, but she wanted something that was going to be like a steady income.
Yeah.
And so she quit and actually retrained and became a teacher.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Did she teach textiles and sewing?
No.
What was it?
She taught just primary school.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
And
Interesting.
think she taught for a while, and then she was married, got divorced. She'd had several kids, and then she got remarried to the man that was the manager for the Sex Pistols.
The Sex Pistols weren't around then. So she married him, and they had a shop in London, and every maybe I can't remember how many times a year it was, but they would change the whole vibe of the shop and the name of the shop. And so at one point they changed the name to Sex, and they were making she was making a lot of pleather and almost like fetish kind of wear, early fetish wear, and there were a bunch of London teens and youth that would come and hang out there because it was cool, and some of those teens were the Sex Pistols. And so they started a band.
I missed that bit.
And I think it might have even been her or her husband or both who named them the Sex Pistols.
Right.
But it was because their shop was called Sex.
Right.
And she was by that time was starting to play with safety pins, ripped fabric, plaid, and so they really took on that look. And what I love is that Vivienne Westwood had said she loved that the designs she made could be created by anybody. So a lot of London youth were just getting safety bins and like adorning their own clothes.
Yeah.
So they weren't buying from her, but they were just emulating her. And she actually loved that. Like, not good for sales, but she liked that they were taking that creativity on and doing it themselves and upcycling and ripping things.
And she was all about like the working class and not having this kind of like hierarchy and, you know, this out of reach kind of designer clothing. Yeah. So the fact that she was able to bring it to the youth and they were able to copy it was, she liked that. Yeah.
And quite different from, like we said, where her brand is now. That's why they call her the godmother of punk, because her and her husband and that shop literally created the first big London punk band.
And I think it's really interesting that like you said, like plaid, mesh, that kind of loose mohair knit, safety pins, everything we associate with punk was part of her design. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. And I think that's so interesting that because, you know, oftentimes kind of trends with that kind of era of fashion will be slow, or it's an accumulation of several designers. Whereas with her, like, she invented a whole genre. Yeah. Which is pretty incredible. Yeah. Yeah. So she was before her time. And then the whole shift to lingerie as outerwear. So she was obsessed with the corset, and we do sort of know corsets now as like bodices, bustiers, all of these designs that are made to be outerwear, but that started with her. I think at one point she went to I don't know, was it in France maybe, but a national museum to look at the corsets and study them. Yeah, because she was obsessed with the French Revolution. Right. And I think it was heavily inspired, like one of her collections was heavily inspired by like what they were wearing at the time of the French Revolution and things like that. It makes sense. And then she also had a collection that was inspired by pirates. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And then Seinfeld kind of took that off with their fluffy... What did they call it? The ruffle pirate shirt or something. You see in the Seinfeld episode, like how aghast the characters are that Jerry accidentally agrees to wear this pirate shirt to like the Late Show. That's how a lot of people responded to her work. So as far as like gender norms or pushing boundaries, how do you think she... Well, I think the reworking lingerie into outerwear was a huge part of that. Well, for a start, she was pushing boundaries by making high-end fashion or runway fashion something rough and torn and gritty and like the streets of working class London. But then she pushed norms again by using lingerie as outerwear and having that sexualization of the female form of clothing, and yet giving it that utter beauty and elegance
while still retaining that grunginess. Yeah, giving women, I think she really gave women and the people who wore her clothes a sense of claiming their own sexuality. And I guess they were doing that by calling a boutique sex, you know, they were going, we're not shying away from taboos, trying to squash them. So I think she was really pushing boundaries in that sense. And then just by making fashion so artistic as well, like even her runway shows being spaces for art. Yeah.
Yeah, and here you've got this trained teacher, mother.
Yeah.
And she's making clothes heavily inspired by bondage and
Yeah.
and fetish and things like that. I mean, yeah, that's pushing boundaries.
Other than using lingerie as outerwear, like the corset, what were the other ways that she actively pushed back against gender binaries?
Well, during her runway shows, she would flip gender norms and she would put men in traditionally female attire, so like ruffly shirts or pearls or skirts. And then she would also put women in traditionally masculine clothing.
Like suiting
And crisp shirts.
Yeah. I was actually in a runway show once.
You?
Yes, I was. I can't believe I haven't told you this, but it just reminded me of it because her runway shows were very theatrical, and I was in a runway show because I was an actor, not because I was a model. It was during Fashion Week. Oh gosh, it would have been maybe 2011, 2012 for Nom D. And it was like the outfits were so cool, but it was kind of like these aristocrats, waifish aristocrats were having like a debauched tea party. So we had a table.
That is so cool.
There was like kind of a Victorian-y ghostly bed set up, and yeah, one of my other friends was another actor, was also in it, and we were like fighting and we were on the table, and yeah, I've got photos of it.
Yes.
I'll put them in the link.
I wanna see
But
that.
I'm guessing that that was a direct kind of genealogical link from Vivienne Westwood's runway shows as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so were her shows quite theatrical?
Yeah. She always used these two models, one of which is now Nick Cave's wife, Susie Cave, who was the designer for The Vampire's Wife. But it was her, and she's stunning, beautiful, like long black hair, and another actress, Sarah, somebody, I'll have to look it up, who was a redhead, and she would often have them performing or walking together, like a little beautiful duet mirror image kind of thing. Yeah. And Susie Cave is quite renowned for being quite introverted, and so I've heard her talk about how much she loved modelling with the other model Sarah, because she was much more extroverted, so she could kind of be like her shadow in a way.
Oh yeah,
but
that's cool.
Yeah, a lovely like long-term relationship between Westwood and those two models. Yeah. I was never a big Madonna fan growing up. I feel bad saying that, but she just wasn't really in my kind of sphere, my cultural sphere, other than like hearing some songs on the radio. But I think because she was more at the pop end, and my older siblings were very much Kurt Cobain, like not pop. So she just didn't enter like my life that much. But I know that she very much was a big part of your adolescence, and I guess she must have been, I know that she worked really closely with Jean Paul Gaultier, but she must have been inspired by, or their collaboration must have had some sort of through line from Westwood's lingerie as outerwear. Yeah, surely.
I wonder, like, because there are things on the internet that say that she was heavily influenced by Vivienne Westwood. I don't know that it was a conscious thing, or that just Vivienne Westwood's designs were so prevalent, and they influenced all punk, and that was so huge at the time when Madonna was growing up. I very much doubt that she was actually consciously channeling Vivienne Westwood. But yeah,
She's just inspired by what she saw around
I
her, and
think
that
so.
happened to come from Westwood.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but when we were thinking of Style Rebels, and you said, "Oh, I don't know if Madonna actually fits in this category." No, but I totally get it and I think that's probably also a New Zealand, North American perspective.
Yeah.
Because I think she was probably less huge here than she was like in America when my sisters were growing up. Because I was an 80s baby, she was massive.
Yeah.
Like she was everywhere.
Yeah.
Her music was everywhere.
Her music was like everywhere, I imagine. It was on the charts, it was on the radio, like a virgin. But we're just very much a rock household, so it didn't.
And my family listened to grunge and stuff like that, but she was just everywhere. And it was like people were always talking about her because she was always
right. We didn't that wasn't the case here from my memory.
Yeah.
But once you said that, and I actually thought about her and researched her more, I was like, oh no, Sienna is so right. Because like we were saying in the last episode, it's not that long prior to Madonna that women were wearing pants on a regular basis, and then suddenly she's there with lace and lingerie and cone boobs and all these. So
I find her fascinating. Like I think her music can be a bit cheesy. I loved her music as a little kid. Like as a 5-year-old, I was like singing all of her music.
I love it now.
Jumping on the bed and singing. Yeah, I do too. But I actually think now, being an adult and looking back at what she represented in our youth, I have so much respect for her. Maybe she often gets slammed as like this horrible bitch and boss bitch, and she was super controlling of her staff and her dancers and stuff like that. But she was incredibly ambitious.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a really patriarchal view of her from an era that still didn't want women to push back so much, because if you're in that industry, it would be so easy to be railroaded and so easy to lose control of your own creative process.
Well, look at Britney Spears.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
that's exactly what happened.
I think justified in being outspoken.
Yeah.
Like that's, so interesting.
And so a little fashion history about Madonna. She grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and very working class family. And she did take dance lessons, and then her dance teacher actually encouraged her to apply for a scholarship for dance, and she got a dance scholarship to the University of Michigan, but she dropped out after not being there very long. I'm not sure exactly how long she was there. She had kind of a hard youth, I would say. Like her mom died of breast cancer when she was 5.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So young.
It's very young. And she was one of many children, Italian, French-Canadian family, which I kind of like about her because I'm French and Italian as well. But she moved to New York after dropping out of dance school or out of the University of Michigan studying dance. And she worked really hard. Like she had got all these crappy jobs, typical kind of jobs that you take on the side while you're trying to make it big. Like it had endless jobs that she had taken. And then she played in various bands until she finally had a break.
Yeah.
And you see it like in her music. I watched a few music videos with my daughter because my daughter was like, I don't know any of Madonna's music. And I was like,
blasphemy.
And I was like, I have failed. No. And we watched her Blonde Ambition tour that was huge in 91. So she traveled around, I think, the world doing this Blonde Ambition tour. And she just dominated the stage. Like you look back at these videos and you're like, they hold up. Right. She was famous actually for saying, I'm not the best singer, I'm not the best dancer, but you know, I work really hard.
Yeah.
And she does.
She's got attitude.
She liked pushing boundaries. I think she liked getting attention. And I think she knew how to hold attention. She was a great performer.
Yeah.
Like Whitney Houston, who kind of rose to stardom around the same time as Madonna. Amazing voice.
Yeah.
Like probably one of the most amazing voices
Yeah.
that will ever be, and stunningly beautiful. Like Madonna wasn't the best looking. She was, you know, she was beautiful, but like Whitney Houston was absolutely stunning and much better singer. But Madonna just had ambition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And charisma.
And she liked pushing back. And what I noticed about her Blonde Ambition tour, I mean, she was wearing this, like, she came out in this very masculine black suit with the suspenders hanging out and an eyeglass piece. She looked amazing. And then she had all these male backup dancers with no shirts on, very little clothing on. And she was the boss. Yeah. Like she was controlling the whole thing. Yeah. And then she came out again and she had this like corset with the cone, her famous Jean Paul Gaultier, like cone bra. Yeah. She just had this like real commanding energy.
Yes. In such a brilliant way, like overstating her femininity
and sexuality,
but and turning it into something in the same way that her attitude is like dominating. The cone bra being so sharp and pointy is really going against the natural like softness of breasts. You know, it's almost phallic in that sense. And they had an amazing relationship throughout decades with his fashion, her style, her costuming. And I love that they keep coming back to the breasts throughout all of those iterations. There was, I remember seeing like a runway show of Jean Paul Gaultier, and she walked in it and she was wearing like the pinstripe suiting, but there was just holes where her breasts were. So her breasts were just exposed through that kind of suiting. And I love that. I don't know, it's like this story arc over time of Madonna, sexuality, womanhood, breasts, you know, like all of that, but just in such a really cool, subversive way in a world where like we're still not allowed to show women's nipples online on social media, whereas men's are fine. It's so cool to see, that storyline that they've created together. Yeah. Around breasts.
Yeah. Well, he famously, I think it's rumored, I don't know whether it's true, but he proposed to her 3 times.
Really? Yeah. I didn't know that.
And they have a very close relationship apparently. But the one you're talking about, it almost looks like suspenders, and then they come underneath, almost a mix between suspenders and bondage.
Yeah.
And then
that's right.
It's got the very tailored suit pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sort of a bit Marlene Dietrich as well.
Oh, absolutely. When we were talking about Marlene Dietrich, that's who I was thinking of, is Madonna, more than anyone, was probably inspired by Marlene Dietrich. Yeah. Like just even those suits that Marlene Dietrich wore, like in that Blonde Ambition tour, you could see that link. And then the hairdo with the very like 1930s pin curls in the blonde with the red lipstick. It was so heavily inspired, whether she realized it or not.
Did Madonna ever play Roxy in Chicago?
I don't think so. She played a lounge singer in Dick Tracy in the 90s.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Because that's what the soundtrack for that, because she wrote the music for it too, right? And then the soundtrack for that has Vogue on it randomly at the end. Yeah. And she actually dated the guy who played Dick Tracy, who was a lot older than her, Warren Beatty. And she came out with this like documentary about her Blonde Ambition tour, like the backs. It was like before reality TV. She made this documentary, which was what reality TV is all about, where they just walked around filming her. Yeah.
And there's like this one part of the movie where Warren Beatty, she's going to the doctor, and the doctor was like, well, do you want to record this part? You know, you're in a doctor's office. Do you want the camera to turn off? And Warren Beatty is joking with her, and he's like, life's not worth living if you're not being filmed. It's not on film. And that's when you think about Madonna. Like, she pushed boundaries. She really changed how women looked at sexuality and women wanting to show that they were being sexual. I feel like even Sex and the City and that show, they needed Madonna to come out before and be like, it's okay to be sexual. It's okay to hump a man on stage.
And to take charge in a sexual scenario too.
Yeah.
That you can be the dominant one. Because for years the whole rhetoric around sex was after marriage, submissive to your husband. Yeah.
And whether she did it to become a star because she
be
wanted
provocative.
it so bad.
And but also that was her personality.
Yeah, I think she had a provocative personality.
Yeah. That doesn't really matter the
reasons.
Yeah.
No.
But
it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I find all of that fascinating. What was the name of the song? That huge one, the Virgin one?
Like a Virgin.
Like a Virgin. Where, I mean, she got major backlash from like Catholics because she was from a Roman Catholic household. And Roman Catholics and Planned Parenthood and everybody. And then you go for the other song she made where it's like Christ, and she was in a field of crosses.
That's right. And she also used like the rosary beads and
like
the cross emblems, like a prayer.
Yeah. And then she was famously for saying that crucifixes were sexy because they had a naked man on them.
That's right. And I think like we think about the 80s as like, oh well, it was the 80s. I hear people say that, but it's, if you were living in that time, it would have seemed like, to put it in context, it would have seemed so outrageous and provocative and scandalous.
Oh, back then it was.
Yeah. It's not like, we almost don't even see it as the start of how scandalous that kind of behavior was, but it would have just been really provocative.
Yeah. I mean, when I was watching that Blonde Ambition tour with my daughter, she actually got on the back of one of her male dancers who had no shirt on, and she was dry humping it. Yeah. Like, she just pushed so many boundaries with sexuality. Yeah.
And I know that we had just come out of the 60s and 70s with sexual liberation and Woodstock and burning the bras, but to then mix it with Catholicism and put it on TV and on the stage and in the ears, you know, like it was a different kind of sexual provocation. That really female dominance was a little bit different to free love.
Oh, absolutely.
And
it was very in your face.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like everybody free love and it's okay to have sex out of marriage if you're in a loving relationship. It was like, no, it's okay for women to be overtly sexual if they want to.
Yeah.
Both Vivienne Westwood and Madonna have heavily influenced the whole like lingerie as outerwear, and even like the little camisoles and things like that people are wearing now.
Yeah.
That wasn't done before them.
No, and I guess that was really picked up by Courtney Love in the 90s and continued. And in fact, Courtney Love definitely was a massive fan of Vivienne Westwood. And she really embraced that, the slip dresses and the camisoles. And interestingly, like, I think she had more of an influence in New Zealand than Madonna did.
I can see that in the clients that we work with today.
Yeah.
I can absolutely see that.
Yeah. I wonder why that is. I mean, they're both American.
Yeah, well, I just think it fits the culture in New Zealand better. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like Madonna's very overt style maybe wasn't as, we couldn't connect with it as much as with Courtney Love. It was a little more subdued.
Yeah.
But also Courtney Love did her schooling in New Zealand.
Did she?
She did.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
She was at a private boarding school in New Zealand. Her mum shipped her off here. And there's one of her songs talks about, I went to school in Olympia, and everyone's the same, they dress the same, they fuck the same, something else. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely about New Zealand.
You hit the nail on the head with Madonna being too in your face, that it's a bit jarring.
Like too loud and outspoken,
Yeah.
which New Zealanders find really hard about Americans.
Yeah.
Anyway, but especially in the 80s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the whole kind of genealogy of punk and grunge and music and fashion is so interesting to me, like all the little connections. Like we're going to talk about Harry Styles, but mentioning Courtney Love, well, Kurt Cobain, he was doing what Harry Styles is doing now, 20, 30, how long ago was the 90s?
Let's not think about it.
30 years ago.
But if you if you think even further back, Bowie.
Yeah.
I mean, he did that. He was dressing in typically women's clothing.
Yeah, and
way back
androgynous
when.
clothing.
And was wearing makeup and was quite effeminate.
And they're all brilliant men. And I wish more men would lean into their feminine side. And we've chosen to talk about Harry Styles rather than David Bowie or Kurt Cobain, even though we will mention them, because he's doing it right now. And we love him for it. A big part of Harry Styles' shift in fashion and style came about from him meeting the stylist Harry Lambert. And like Harry Styles has said that upon meeting him, it was so joyous, his outlook on fashion and playful, and that Harry Styles had always loved dressing up, like he would, and his mum loved dressing up, so it was something that he had a love of from a young age. But then meeting Harry Lambert, it allowed him to explore like being camp in a playful way, and the ability to remove the idea that this garment is for a man, this garment is for a woman, and instead just see clothes as playthings.
Yeah.
I love like the kind of dandy-ish aesthetic that he brings to it, which Bowie and Kurt Cobain didn't really do. Like with Kurt Cobain, it was very much like, yeah, I'm going to wear a dress. What of it? You know, like putting on a floral kind of housewife dress with his boots and his makeup and being Kurt Cobain in a dress, smoking ciggies. And with David Bowie, it was like a whole artistry and almost futuristic sexuality that went along with it. But Harry Styles, it is that playfulness that you see.
Absolutely.
And the dandy, like the pearl earring at the Met Gala, and his, like the ruffles, the pussy bows, the lace, like his Vogue Gucci shoot in 2020, that Gucci dress that he is wearing with all the tears and the black lace trims over the white lace of the main fabric, like that tailored feminine jacket, like it's amazing. But then also playing with like the Gucci plaid woman's wool coat with the pussy bow shirt, like something that you would wear yourself.
I love it.
And it's funny because you have spirited as one of your archetypes, which is the playful archetype, and he obviously does too. And he's drawn to a lot of the same silhouettes and details that you are, but it's that like performative playfulness and joy of clothing. And he is consciously sort of putting out a statement about masculinity and
absolutely
his own values around shirking toxic masculinity and encouraging men to embrace femininity and not be so serious about you'll wear a dress so that means, you know, you're homosexual or like all that kind of BS that goes on.
Or you want
just
attention.
You can be anything and you can express yourself in any way and just be joyful with it and have fun with it. And he's absolutely inspired by David Bowie. And he's outwardly said that, and Elton John and all those men who were brilliant showmen and would perform that partly through their outfits and costumes, but he's taking it in his own direction with Harry Lambert, and I love it. I love the dandy feel, and I love the focus on joy and playfulness. It's beautiful.
Yes, I do too. I think he must have spirited as one of his.
He must.
Yeah. And I mean, Elton John, he did say he's inspired by Elton John, like you said. And Elton John didn't push, like, I didn't really see him wearing too much, like, typically feminine clothing, but he pushed boundaries with color and doing ruffles down his shirts.
Yeah, and like feather
that.
boas and things. There were definitely
very performative.
female performative influences. But not to he wasn't wearing skirts or Gucci dresses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love there was one outfit he wore with, like, it was a top with these florals, but really bright florals. I can't remember if it had a pussy bow or not, but I just loved it. I was like, oh, it looks so good.
Yeah.
And yes, I would totally wear a lot of his clothes.
And it's not even just like the playfulness of it, but it's also like the feminine softness and sensuality that he brings to those outfits when he uses them in his music videos or his performances. There's like this Victorian Gothic female sensuality that he inhabits and embodies in them as well. He lets the clothes take him into different sort of emotive journeys. And
I love how it looks so effortless on him. Like, when you look at him, you don't even question, Harry Styles is wearing a dress. It just looks so effortless, and he looks so comfortable doing it that I think he's a really great role model.
Yeah, I really love this quote from Harry Styles, just going back to the joy of clothing and playfulness. He said, I'll go in shops sometimes and I just find myself looking at the women's clothes thinking they're amazing. It's like anything. Anytime you're putting barriers up in your own life, you're just limiting yourself. There's so much joy to be had in playing with clothes. I've never really thought too much about what it means. It just becomes this extended part of creating something. He's just talking about when you remove that there's clothes for men, clothes for women barrier and just see them all as clothes. Yeah. And I also like this quote from Olivia Wilde, who's the actress and director, which she says about Harry Styles, it's pretty powerful and kind of extraordinary to see someone in his position redefining what it can mean to be a man with confidence. Just giving another like version of masculinity and another kind of role model for manhood. And like we've said, he's not the first person to do it, but he's doing it now for a new generation.
Yeah. And so, same as Billie Eilish, I think she's pushing what we expect of gender norm, or we used to expect, and people are just being themselves rather than attaching gender to it.
Yeah. And we've spoken a lot about fashion and gender norms and people who have used it to rebel against ideas of femininity or broadening the scope of how women can dress, but that's not the only way that you can rebel through fashion. So I really wanted to bring it back to Aotearoa and a local context. I think there's multiple people that would be worth talking about, but one in particular that I want to chat about is Jeanine Clarkin, who is a Māori designer, and she has been working in fashion since the 90s and really positioned herself as a sort of fashion activist. She went to fashion school and she studied couture design and construction. So she's an incredible designer and seamstress and all of that. But what she noticed upon coming back to New Zealand was a lack of seeing young Māori having clothes that showed that cultural affiliation other than like pounamu or bone carving, but she would see it from other cultures, other Pacific Island cultures and Indian cultures, and that really made her question, we've got patterns and prints, but what does a garment that is Māori look like, and how could that be worn as streetwear? And so one of her first collections was actually like a streetwear, Māori streetwear collection. She did use like print work and woodblock printing as like a staple of her designs, but also, actually going back and looking at garment construction. So she was making rapaki, which are like the wraparound skirts, and maro, which are like the loincloths, but updated streetwear versions of those, and then aprons and capes, and creating this really cool fusion of high-end fashion but with streetwear within a Māori context, and using that too, because it's only a decade after the Māori Renaissance of the 80s. So putting that on catwalks, having it as an option of ready to wear that people could buy to show who they are. Like that was, and so a lot of her designs kind of became a uniform for cultural activism and like an extension of Māori Renaissance and rebellion. And she was upcycling, she was slow fashion, sustainable, in a big way before the whole upcycling thing as we know it now came along. And I think she was one of the first designers to use our beautiful vintage blankets as kakahu, and turning them into not only like the coats that we think of as probably the first thing we think of when we think of upcycling those blankets, but like beautiful dresses. I'll put an image up here of there's this beautiful pink one, like a pink blanket. You know how they had the satin edging, and so the satin edging is sort of sitting like these beautiful lace trims, and it's just gorgeous, but also incredible like capes and dresses and all these different types of garments from those blankets, and they just look so cool. And it's like a fun New Zealand based version of plaid as well, and so she's sort of picking up on those features of punk, but within the context of Aotearoa. She's done so much work in terms of promoting slow fashion within New Zealand as well, and to other designers. So she's a phenomenal wahine in New Zealand fashion history.
Because those blanket jackets are everywhere. And I hadn't realized until we were looking at her designs that she was actually probably the first person to do them.
And to use them as clothes. And I mean, hers are much more like, she's got a couture background. So
they're
incredible.
Much more tailored.
Jeanine Clarkin, in terms of rebel fashion in New Zealand and bringing fashion with like a Māori to ao Māori viewpoint, a colonial influence, all those things, a punk ethos, she's your gal. But I also really love Kiri Nathan, who has designed for Barack and Michelle Obama, Beyonce, the Duchess of Sussex, like amazing credentials. And she made Jacinda Ardern's some of her clothes, like ones that she wore to Waitangi celebrations. And she also designed the dress that Chelsea Winstanley wore to the Oscars when Jojo Rabbit was nominated, which she produced. She's the wife of Taika Waititi. So like continuing those celebratory moments where Indigenous New Zealand culture is celebrated on a world stage, that those accomplishments are celebrated, and then that being reinforced by our fashion designers is so cool. So she, like, that's the first Māori designed gown to walk the Oscars carpet, That's so cool. We have focused a lot on gender norms, but in a colonized country like Aotearoa, fashion is a brilliant medium for pushing back against colonization and embracing culture and giving people a means to wear it, to wear that culture. And I love Jeanine Clarkin said, just like you are what you eat, you are what you wear. And I think it's so true. Our branding slogan is wear who you are. It's the same. It's that same idea.
Well, it's giving them a voice, right? Like we, Peter, my husband, and we were very lucky to get invited to a First Nation fashion show.
Oh, wow.
In Vancouver. I should show you some pictures. And it was amazing. And every designer featured at the fashion show was First Nation. Every model that walked down, every piece of artwork that hung was from a First Nation artist. Yeah, and it was incredible.
Do you remember one of the designs that you particularly loved in that fashion show?
There were some amazing bodices that were like weaved, but also like incorporated quite feminine designs in with the weaving. And I thought it was quite cool. And the colors, like quite a moody palette as well.
Yeah. It reminded me of one of Jeanine Clarkin's designs, which is like a bodice hot pants set.
Oh, that's
but they're
cool.
kind of inspired by the outfits that performers wear during kapahaka, like the woven. It's a special name for them, but it slipped my mind. But yeah, they're really cute and really very cool. Feels good to be back because we had a bit of a break due to lost voices and winter flus. We hope that you've enjoyed listening to today's podcast. We will be back with another one, hopefully in a couple of weeks. I've got a bunch of ideas about what that one might be. If we've talked about anything that you have found interesting, then let us know in the comments. You can follow us on Instagram. We are Malone.styling. You can watch these episodes on YouTube, which is also Malone Styling. You can find us on Facebook, and you can check out our website, which is www.malonestyling.com.
And when we're not filming podcasts, we are working as stylists where we help people to find their authentic style and in a more sustainable way.
We'll see you next time. Ka kite.